Right.
Matt Coley with Socket.
Sue's on there. I don't know if we. Sue Golder. You muted? David Lomax is on there. David's never muted. I was gonna say, he's usually not back.
Stranger things have happened.
A couple more just now coming in, so. I think we're close. All right. David, are you going to introduce yourself?
If you insist, Dave Lomax, presiding commissioner, Marion County.
You know Wiley. Who else? Just joined us. I think Michael. All right. Michael, you muted?
Hey,
Yeah.
Michael Gallagher with Worldwide Technology.
Thank you for joining us. Madeline, are you muted?
I am representative. Hello, everyone. It's Madeline Romeus with AT&T.
Good afternoon. Sue, get over here. Sue, are you muted? And Ally did minutes.
Isaac Baker's coming in here too.
They were attached.
Should have been out. Everybody got a copy of the minutes, or if not, we'll go ahead and send those out. Ally can facilitate that. Covered a lot of ground last time. I'm going to cover a lot of ground this time. I want to thank everybody again for popping on this Friday afternoon. I want to talk somewhat about the governor of the state and the budget numbers that came out. And as expected, governor is asking for a little over $400 million in broadband. Half of that basically would go into the broadband infrastructure program itself, i.e. The state fund, which is now being administered by BJ Tanksley. Thank you for joining us here this afternoon, BJ. There are other buckets that go into that. Some of the ones I want to talk about briefly here today. Digital literacy programs that we had not talked about at a statewide level at all until this past year. Digital navigators, folks basically for a workforce development standpoint. Also for seniors trying to access telehealth, we have some real gaps out there in knowledge. People who can't figure out how to make an email address work, you can't upload a resume to Indeed. It's 85–90% of the workforce out there now is using online resources. During the midst of the great resignation, we have people out there sitting on the sidelines who literally can't get in because they don't know how to work the equipment. So that's something that was important. It's rather good to see that. I've been on the phone today with lots of different folks from around the state trying to put pieces of that puzzle together. Kansas City, I think, leads the state in this particular area. We've got some partners willing to step up in the St. Louis area. Obviously, libraries are a big part of this, but they're not the only ones out there. So there are people in Kansas City who literally go door to door doing this. Goodwill Industry has a mobile unit. I was able to talk to them this week. They want to expand their service area and their availability. Encourage them to do that. They had some numbers they brought in and said just double it. It's the year to do that. We need to get this done sooner rather than later. So there were some other areas out there to talk about just briefly, some broadband capacity building, which addresses the mapping issue. I've got some legislation about to introduce that would codify that. I want to put that in statute basically to the point where we have a resource that's continuing ongoing. Same statute when I introduce it, we'll also have a research arm that will be dedicated to doing nothing but researching where we're at, basically down to the school district level. So this research has been done. It has been demonstrated. Folks who are doing it actually testified before the interim committee. They have work product, they have a process, they have something there that we can build on, and we should. So it's nice to see we've got a lot of different buckets out there addressing various issues. And it's something I know the executive branch put in a lot of time and effort to get to that point. When you see Christian, thank her from agriculture. She's been basically our champion since day one on this particular issue. So she has been there all the way through. Her input was also solicited. She was the one who came before the committee and talked with us about the immense volume of data that were being pushed out now through GPS. Everything's, well, all the new equipment going out there is GPS enabled. We're literally creating a new industry for people basically to interpret that data and then translate that into action steps that our folks in production agriculture can take to decrease the input costs, increase yields, and basically what is that good for? It's good for everybody, including our schools and our county road and bridge funds. So it was encouraging to see that. If anybody hasn't taken a look at that, should be available online. BJ, you got some resources there on your website. If you want to jump in and refer folks in that direction, any comments that you have or observations based on what you've seen so far as the governor's recommendation. I know your time is short, so I wanted to hear from you especially. What are you seeing?
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you for letting me join you. Really excited about this opportunity. Obviously, you see the governor laying a $400 million plan, probably more than a couple of years ago we could have ever dreamed of, and really expecting to make a lasting impact with this. First and foremost being the infrastructure program, just for providers in the room and others, and for everyone there, just know this is largely going to be based off of what you've seen from NTIA and the state level grant program, where we're going to do competitive grants based on number of people served and the quality of service being delivered, and roll that out over a period of time to try to really increase access across the state. I think we've got a lot of opportunity there. And just keep in mind, Missouri also, on the infrastructure front, has a large amount of grants pending with NTIA. We asked for a lot more than our fair share of what NTIA was putting out. I think we put out like $50 million worth, and we'll see here pretty soon. Talked to them yesterday, and the answer was, quote, early 2022. Well, we're at the end of January now, so we'll hope to see that relatively soon. But that's kind of the infrastructure front as we see, and don't forget, Infrastructure and Jobs Act will also be sending some funding this way. So I think we have an opportunity over the next few years to really make an impact. Representative Riggs set it up perfectly when you see some of the other buckets that we're talking about. One of the things that I've learned and talked a lot about since coming here is Missouri really ranks low in adoption rates as well. It's not only that we're low in access, but also pretty low in adoption rates. And so that's where you're going to see investments into affordability programs, supporting some of the affordability programs out there, helping providers bridge that gap between the cost that they can afford to provide it at and the cost that the people out there across the state can actually afford. So we're looking forward to actually helping to boost that a little bit, where the governor proposed $30 million to go towards that program. And then the other 30 that Representative Riggs talked about was the digital literacy program. And he hit it right. This is about learning about access to telehealth, how to plug into that education, and how to turn a digital connection into a job opportunity. So that's what we're looking to do with that 30 million also, is to, over the next few years, partner with local agencies who are already doing education, whether or not they're already doing digital education. Those already kind of trusted partners. We'll be looking to partner with them through a competitive grant process, again, to make sure we're reaching the most and being good stewards of our funds, because even though it sounds like a large number, those funds will go over time. But we'll be doing that through a competitive grant process to really try to amp up that adoption side. We hear it from providers, but we also see it when we look at statistics that it's important to make sure you get that adoption side up well. We want to make sure people know this isn't just about entertainment, but also about economic opportunity as well. And then the last bucket was also for on a little bit on the, it looks selfish and some of it is capacity building for the Office of Broadband. There was $10 million put into this, obviously over a number of years, where we're going to help staff up the office ourselves. Tim did a great job for the state, but he was a one-man shop. And I'm really excited that over the next couple months, we're looking to bring on a good number of people, total having 13 to 15 people working in the state. So excited about the opportunity that that's going to bring. When we're looking at handling this amount of funds, we're going to need that to make sure we're staying up on compliance and applications and making sure we're being good stewards of the funds. But that's not just for us. That capacity building is also going to fund statewide address level mapping process that we're really excited about. We're really excited about taking it on ourselves to make sure that we know where service is available and where it's not across the entire state. So we're excited about that opportunity. And the other part that's going to fund through that capacity is some community assistance. So we're going to have some staff that's housed here in the office actually being assigned to helping communities as they look to develop broadband in their areas. I know you guys have a great thing going there where you've been talking about broadband for a long time. I was talking to somebody from a different area of the state that was talking about, okay, where do we start? And so hopefully over time in the next couple of years, we're really able to ramp up a good community services side of this that are able to actually go out there, connect with people, help them answer the questions that maybe they don't even know the right questions to ask yet, but really help develop that and help people build plans to be able to develop a stronger service in their area. So I'm excited about where we are. There's a lot of legislation floating around out there. One that DED itself put out was one to increase those base level speeds. We're excited about that conversation of saying that standard for being considered served should meet the federal definitions of 100 by 20. So that's kind of where DED has fallen in that conversation. That way we're incentivizing service that's going to last for years to come. So we're excited about kind of raising the bar on that. I know it'll be a conversation in the Capitol, but the biggest thing is our focus is really, and we'll appreciate your support as we do so, is support the governor in this proposed budget situation. It's a lot of funding, and I realize that ARPA is sending us a lot of funds, but that doesn't mean the budget conversation is going to be easy. The proposals always get a lot of conversation. Representative Riggs is grinning because he knows what's saying is true, is even though it's a large amount of money, everybody's going to scrutinize what we're doing with it. And we want scrutiny. We're excited about the opportunity, but we're going to need some support from the citizens across the state saying that this is a big need and we need to see a large investment in this area. I will tell you all kind of one last thing before I take too much of your time is right now we have a gap analysis out in the field. They're actually studying right now where service is available, where it's not, and giving us a reasonable, now I don't want to say it's a perfect estimate, but a reasonable estimate of what it will take to reach different levels of service across the state. And I'm excited about that. I don't think it's going to be perfect, but I think it's going to give us a good starting point for this conversation of why a significant investment is needed and really where we can go from here. It's kind of a phase one of multiple phases, but excited about what we're doing with them to really get a good baseline as we look to make this major investment. So thank you for letting me visit for a little while. We're a lot of work going on. Be happy to connect with anybody here that I haven't. I'm glad to see a lot of faces that I have before or have already. I've really been encouraged since I came to the office about the excitement around this topic and appreciate everybody that has reached out. If you haven't, you can reach me. My email address is bj.tanksley@ded.mo.gov. And I don't have all my phone numbers memorized quite yet, but one of them is 573-694-8785. Feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to share more details on what we've got going. I will say, all of these proposals are proposals, and we'll be taking public input and help and getting your input as we shore these up and get ready to make these investments starting in the summertime and looking to make some announcements in the fall of actually putting some of these grants out there. So thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Director. If you have a few minutes, could we go ahead if anybody had questions?
Absolutely. I just didn't want to take too much of your time. Yeah.
Making sure you're able to stick around for a little bit. So anybody who had any questions, now's the time. I'll just get out of the way and y'all can have talk.
BJ, would you mind putting that contact information in the chat so everybody has access to that, and then we'll have it in the meeting minutes that way as well. So
Yeah, I'd be glad to.
thank you.
Yeah.
And everybody jump in at once. You're supposed to be drinking from a fire hose, so.
It has been an exciting time, I will say that, and I've really honestly been encouraged by the excitement around the opportunity. I mean that when I say that. I have been able to be around this topic for a number of years, working for Missouri Farm Bureau prior to this. and really excited to jump in with both feet at this point.
I'd like to tell people, you've heard every rant in the building for at least the last 5 years about broadband. Half of them are mine, so thank you for paying attention, but also looking forward to working with you in this capacity, and you understand a lot of the other issues that go into it, easements and the other things that we nod around the table like, yeah, those are problems, make readies, all that other stuff, the more technical things that we need to get into. So appreciate your joining us.
BJ, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything statewide that would allow us universal attachment to existing poles? Because, for instance, we have a lot of Ameren customers on the north end of Rawls County. And instead of paying $10,000 to hook up 30 people out in the suburb, we're paying $100,000 because they won't let us attach to the pole.
Yeah. So on the pole attachments, that is something we've heard a lot about, and Representative Riggs did through the interim committee. We are expecting that to be a coverable expense in our ARPA grant programs. We want to help fund those problems headed forward. We realize that that could be a big barrier. I think when we do consider it a coverable expense, we will also put some parameters around what's reasonable expense for that, which should help in that conversation. But I do think that that's a large part of that is one of the we've heard from multiples, including some experts in the field that aren't invested in it, that is one of the most unknown issues when you go into a build. I think that's very true. And we're looking to help with that as a coverable expense, because we want to make sure we're funding it going forward, because we want to be increasing access through these funds. So we understand that's an issue, and we'll be looking to address it. So they'll see it, providers will see it in our drafts and all of that, so they can put comments in there and help us really shore up what it should be.
Is there any, it's not the expense so much, it's just they won't allow it, period.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar.
Or make it so impossible that you have to replace the whole pole to be able to attach to it. And
yeah, I do hear the pole attachment and pole replacement conversation can be a very difficult one, especially with some pole owners.
Right. Okay.
And yes, the
Good to
general
see you, sir.
is well aware that there are issues here, and we're dealing with them as quickly as we can, as best we can. And honestly, I can say this from being in the middle of it, we've got a pretty good consensus built up to this point. We need to do something 2022 in the story. And I've been telling people, be prepared to give up a little, get a lot. There are enough subscribers out there, enough customers who have done without for a very long time who want to do with. It's just a question of how do we reach them most effectively with the resources we have at our disposal. And I think we have Representative Bosley.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Thank you for being here and giving that information. I guess my question more so than anything is geared toward what are you seeing as far as that survey that you were talking about earlier? So I represent the urban area, but we have a problem with broadband access here too. So what are you seeing as far as that survey to mitigate that problem in St. Louis City as well?
Yeah, Representative, I haven't seen any of the results yet. So what I have seen is the parameters of it and like the standards that we're asking them to stand to. I have not seen the results yet. I may see some preliminary results in mid-February, but I won't have those until the end of February for the full results. I do know that is also an issue and not something we're looking to ignore in any way. So if we haven't seen it, we're going to be asking for it to get the truth of what availability is in both the urban centers and the rural areas. I agree and understand the issue. I was in an interview just today where an interviewee from kind of a rural area of the state was asking about access issues from a rural perspective. And I said, it's not just rural, it's urban too. And some of those issues very much overlap about affordability and access and all of that it all plays into each other. So yes, something we will be looking to address as well. It's not just a rural issue. I totally understand that. I'll come visit with you sometime if you'd like for me to and see what we can do about that and talk about if I've seen preliminary results.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Yep, will do.
And to that point, we also have funding in here just to address that particular issue with affordability. The EBB money apparently is going to be extended into the foreseeable future. I'd like to say perpetuity, but we're not 100% sure. There is
I
also
think,
state funding.
Representative, I think they changed that to ACP is what it's called now, Affordable Connective Program, and it is at least funded what it looks like to be in perpetuity. So I do think you'll see that, and the state's going to add some to that for a little while. We've got 30 million for affordability also.
And just when you get used to one acronym, they switch it out. So change of administration, there you go.
There you go.
And it's, anybody else have any questions for Director Tanksley?
Yes, this is Julie Rogers, Lincoln County, and welcome, BJ. We're glad to have you here. I think there's a lot of talk a lot of times about mapping, getting accurate data. How big of a priority is that, and what can we expect to see from that angle?
Absolutely. It's included in our $10 million ask for capacity. And I think I haven't seen any of the projections for it, but I do think it's going to be one of the largest priorities we have. A lot of people here at the state level know that that's important. To be able to do this in a smart manner and a fiscally sound manner, I think we need to have good mapping of what's available. And I know that takes boots on the ground and organizational support to really do that. So yeah, it's a top priority for us. It's not going to be above getting programs out there where we're going to work kind of like the grant program did in the past, where providers can prove the unserved nature of an area. But we're also going to be working on that to make sure we're getting a good solid map. I've even heard from the federal level, some federal programs are saying it'll be helpful to have your own state map where you kind of own the data to be able to drive funds going forward. So we do think it's a top priority.
And also to that point, next generation 911, that's something as a base layer. I've talked with those folks. They are on fire for this. They want to help out in such a big way. And this is something that basically it's down to that household address, what have you. We were part of the pilot project with the FCC where they tied basically Google Earth technology to existing assessment records. So, we're able to basically isolate what's out there, what needs to be done, which parcels need to be hit. So it's kind of a situation that's really interesting. We're throwing lots of different things at this particular problem. We hope to solve it as soon as we can. But I look at other states, West Virginia, for example, where they have a really good map. It's based on speed tests. It's real time. I know Cindy, if she's still on the call, everywhere she goes, she brings her phone out and she does a little speed test and how much you're paying for, what are you getting? And it's always an eye opener for folks. So it's something that's vital importance. We know the SEC maps are garbage. They're inaccurate. They're out of date the minute they're released. They know that. We know that. We need to build a better mousetrap in Missouri. All right. Any other questions for Director Tanksley? He's going to have to jump off the call here pretty soon.
From Michael, who's taking point to accomplish a mapping exercise, realize census block not good enough, not to address site level with the National Geospatial Agency in St. Louis as well as others. The geo capabilities seems would be good to engage NGA. So I guess
Yeah, they were talking about who's taking the lead on that. I believe because of state procurement and the size of this project, we will be going through the bid process where we actually let it out there for people that specialize in this world of doing this to let us know what it might cost to do it. And it'll be done by competitive also. So that's kind of the process we'll go through. At this point, I know a few of the players in the game, the names of the people, but we don't know who's going to do it at this point. But we will be putting it out for request for proposal and all that kind of thing to go through the state procurement process. Again, we want to make sure we're doing these things fiscally sound as well as trying to do them with an urgent manner. So once we get the appropriation, that's why it's important that we get this appropriation passed as soon as possible, is to then be able to roll into taking action. And that'll be one of the first things we do, in addition to adding staff here in the office.
That's part of the supplemental, correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
I remember seeing that, just making sure it's still in there. So
Yes, it's important.
any other questions for the director?
any community partners that you all are teaming with in those areas, like the colleges, universities? I heard the NGA being brought up, which I have the honor of representing here in St. Louis. I was just wondering if you're teaming up with any of those community partners, like I said, the universities, colleges, the libraries, et cetera, on kind of getting that mapping side of it, as well as mapping out how we can be fiscally responsible, because we know the state loves private-public partnerships all the time.
Yes, ma'am. I do think you'll see a lot of partnership through this process. Those are all going to be done by competitive grant. But yes, we're going to be looking to partner with local agencies on digital literacy, on affordability, and on these types of, the mapping type processes. A lot of times the mapping is a multiple step process where you create a map and then you actually need boots in the field, actually looking at speed tests from around areas. And so, yeah, I think we'll be looking to our partners from all across the state to really dig into the mapping side, but also on all of those actual programming where we do see non-for-profits, other government entities, libraries, and those types of things really being able to be great partners because they're already trusted in their area and they're already kind of working on educational fields. So I think there's some great opportunities there to really partner with others to reach this gap. So I'm excited about that. And yes, it's absolutely one of the strategies we're looking to employ. I will say in my short time here, I've been here about 8 days at this point. I'm really excited by the fact that I've heard from a lot of folks from every area of the state, Kansas City, St. Louis, rural areas, about what they're doing in their areas. And I think we'll have a lot of opportunities to do that going forward.
And also to that point, we have Microsoft sitting in St. Louis that's expressing interest in helping out in this particular space, and Google in Kansas City's already out there doing it. So there are a lot of really good resource partners out there who are doing amazing work every day. We just need to tie them all together and get to know their names. So when that time comes, we know exactly who to contact and what their service area looks like. So
All right.
Questions for Director Tanksley? And before he stepped out and see anything on chat. So I know you had to go. Are you still good?
I've got to jump, actually. Thank you all so much. If you have any other questions, I sent my contact information, or Representative Riggs knows how to get a hold of me anytime. I really appreciate y'all letting me join you, and I hate to have to jump, but I appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good luck. Don't burn yourself out.
Thank you, sir.
And Brian, you want to do an introduction?
Brian Nichols with Congressman Sam Graves' office.
Anything new on the federal front?
Not on broadband.
Not yet.
Money flowing.
Yeah, I'm actually talking to some
Usual
folks this
wisely.
morning about the next round of funding as far as what the formula is going to look like, minimum $100 million, how that is shaking. Are you hearing anything yet? Treasury guidance, that's a little bit early.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it though.
Yeah, we're trying to crystal ball that and get ahead of it. So hopefully it'll be closer to 200 million than one, but we have no way of knowing that. So as soon as you hear, let us know. Yep. Appreciate it. All right, go ahead at this point. I'm going to take some reports from the steering committee members. So just go in this direction. Lynn, where are you?
We did get official notification that our RDOF was approved. There's been some issues with that office with a number of folks being out for COVID-related illnesses, but we did get notification yesterday that the check's in the mail. So we're hoping to get some of the first payment with that. We did not stop the progress of building, so we're still building out ahead of getting that funding, but we anticipate in some of the areas like the city of New London will be finished within about 2 weeks. That'll put us less than 300 addresses from finishing all of Rawls County, providing where everyone has access to service. So we're hoping that gets done pretty quickly, to the point that Wiley was speaking to earlier. There's one issue I didn't really want to take the time to push this out on BJ this morning, but one of the issues that we're running into, and we're in a little different position than some, is the fact that we're really closing in on finishing the area. There are some areas that we have within our service territory that have a different electric provider than Rawls County Electric. And they're in an area in which that area is already considered served because we serve 90% of the territory. So that last 300 or so addresses are in areas that are already considered served, and there's very little funding mechanism, if any, to fund those areas. And it's going to be very expensive to get to the last onesie twosies in that area. So we're trying to figure out how we can work with the office and DED and try to get some qualifications for funding in those areas. But we're still pushing out pretty hard in the areas. I have also met with Pike County folks and have got the cooperation of both River Electric and Consolidated to build on their service lines. And we're in the final stages of creating a partnership agreement in which they're going to partner with us to help us deploy into those counties as well too. So it's full steam ahead.
Any luck in Marion County?
I have not talked to Marion County.
Hope Springs determined.
Part of my RDOF requirement is we're building north and south of the Mark Twain Lake. And some of that actually is going to be in Monroe County, and but not Marion County. But I am trying to work out a deal with the rural electric in that area and see if I can establish some type of attachment agreement or partnership agreement as well too.
We have a lot of it going on this year. Kirby, I don't know, do you want to speak on that or you want me to?
Oh, sure, if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, Representative Riggs, thank you. And I got Darren and Don on here, so I'm sure you would have got to me at some point in time. But what I can say is we are very busy with these programs. You know, we NTIA took so much, and now we're working on Reconnect, and the timeframes on these are so tight, and the paperwork to put this all together, and the deadline for Reconnect now is February 22nd, and we're still working with the NTIA. So I think I talked about this once before with you, that the programs start overlapping on each other, and I think maybe someone brought it up earlier too, is once we get these maps, it's also where funding is and where people committed to going before we can start overlapping other funds onto these areas too. And it is really getting a lot of work, but you know, we're taking advantage of every program that they're putting out there, make sure we're covering every inch we can get to, you know, button up against my partner there in Rawls Electric and everybody else. But Sheridan Valley, we're getting prepared for a big year, big construction year. And, you know, with CAF, we're RDOF, we're hopefully NTIA and maybe Reconnect. So there's going to be lots of movement, Sheridan Valley as well.
And ARPA funding.
That's right. And then hopefully Missouri broadband funding later on. And working with our partners at Marion County as well.
And we got a couple providers here in the room. We've got Brian. And what are we talking about? And Cindy as well, stacking with ARPA funds, trying to find ways basically to strategize ways to leverage that. How is that looking?
Well, you know, if the programs will let us do, we call it the donut holes, where you have to make maps and where funding is. And I think I talked about this once before too, is there's a point in time where we have facilities and we just extend the facility. So who else is going to go there? And, you know, all the requirements are so lofty as far as speeds aren't a problem, but then we start carving out little holes of all these territories of where we need to go and what needs to be filled. At some point in time, maybe we're not there yet, it's going to be a situation where we have to talk to, well, who's there and what does it need to finish this little donut hole? And kind of what Lynn was saying too, to finish that little piece.
Yeah, I agree 100%. There are times that we've gotten calls and we know that it's just, there's no practical sense for us to build to an area, and we'll share those addresses with Sheridan Valley and say, hey, they're requesting, it's in your area, it's very close. Can you extend to it? And they've been very gracious to do that. The issues that we're looking at is there are some areas that these final areas that are so expensive to build that if there's any opportunity to supplement some of the expense by including more than one funding program in it, we're looking to do that. And frankly, from what I'm hearing is I'm not hearing a whole lot of pushback with that. In some areas, I think, especially when you're dealing with counties and what dollars the counties have, we're exploring that. Now we're looking for some legal opinion to keep me out of jail in that process or so. But there are some areas that won't be built without that higher degree of supplementation to the expense.
So Louis, this is Janie. Do you mind if I jump in real quick? Because this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I've had numerous conversations prior with Tim, but more recently with BJ, because that has been an issue all along, is how do you fill those holes that are out there, and how do we reach the ones like that? BJ, I know if he was on here, he'd be telling you this. They understand that as well, and they're looking at that is going to be something that they're looking into, because they realize that we're not going to meet everything if we don't start filling those holes where there's already, and again, I don't want to step on toes, but it's like you said, if it's expensive and there's something that's going on, whether it's the current provider that is in that area or somebody else coming in, there's got to be a way that we can reach those individuals and families or where businesses, whatever it might be. So I just share that with you because it's something that has, I know if anybody has heard me talk, I've talked about that all along, is how do we reach the ones that are going to be the hard ones? BJ is on it. They're looking at ways out of when they established the broadband funding program, is there some way that something can be done to help in this area? So and then the last piece of that is I've been doing a great deal of research. Some states are figuring out how to fill those holes. I'm trying to figure out from those states how they did it and whether it's off the wall or something that Missouri could consider.
And to that point, we've had that talk with Sheridan Valley. I can name you a hole in my district that's 5 miles wide. No real plans to get it. I mean, it's copper wire everywhere, but as far as real broadband, it's a problem within city limits of Hannibal. I can name them. And I hear from them like all the time. So I feel everybody else is paying on this. It's just basically a question, how do we strategize around this? So when you figure out what state has figured that out, let us know and we'll contact them immediately. All right, Allie? Updates.
I'm gonna go on maternity leave on Monday.
She's a short time.
Yes, thank you for being here.
Maybe, if you make it.
Yeah, hopefully like tonight or soon, but yeah, I'm just hanging in there, so.
And
I'll
Allie,
provide a better update when I return.
yeah, Allie shares things that are going on in Iowa too, so she has a
Yeah.
presence in both. So I get my real-time intel from Allie. It's like, "Ooh, what's going on in Iowa?" Well, let me tell you. So,
Yeah, exactly. I'll keep forwarding that stuff too.
Dr. Pullman.
I guess the only update I have is that we have received a gift and will be the home of the Tri-State Development Summit from now on. And one of the task force that have been part of that summit is a connectivity task force. So we're looking forward to making a contribution and helping to organize the work that summit had carried out in other areas, but including connectivity and having somebody working on that 365 days a year in connection with other economic development activities. We're proud of that. We're excited about the opportunities that presents.
Or anything else there? Let's David Lomax.
Aye, sir.
Going on in Marion.
Say again.
What's going on in Marion?
Waiting for Sheraton Valley to kind of give us an idea of what their progress plan is. Haven't heard much out of Mark Twain up for the upper northwest part of the county. Haven't heard anything more out of Spectrum that was talking about going out 168 on the Bay Road. And really haven't heard much other than that.
168 on the Bay Road, that's that little 5-mile piece there where we're
You can't
struggling.
get, yeah, I get an earful from a retired physician that is now a associate pastor of a church. He lives up on 402 off of 168. He's too low off the bluff to get a Wi-Fi signal and too far out in the weeds from Palmyra and too far up the road from Hannibal.
You could put an antenna on my deck, Darren. Come on. We've talked about it. Rancho, Kirby.
Well,
Rancho.
I
I can get them from here. I can get them from my deck, Kirby.
We actually have a piece of legislation was introduced this week. It's basically called vertical management, where we want to equip every state building and every subdivision of the state that has buildings, right down to rural water, to schools, whomever, to be able to go out, public-private partnership, go out, put a contract out. Here's a tower, here's a space. What can we do basically to help situations like that? So repeating how we get the signal amped up, then they allow them to do that. They've done it in other states. It's worked out well. Blood is not running in the streets, so I'm pretty confident we can do something with that here. All right. Tracy, you there?
Yeah, I am. Thank you, Representative Riggs. Just a couple things I wanted to mention on the mapping. National Association of Counties has just updated a app that you can download, and it will actually identify your location and then provide the speed and what type of connection you're on to the National Association of Counties. And that's all they're collecting is location, speed, and what type of connection. It's called Test It, and I've used it several places. And you can just walk up. I mean, so I forgot who it was. It said they go knock on a door, ask somebody if they can get on their Wi-Fi, and it will actually provide information on a national level, which we should be able to get back down to our local level to identify those map points and give us a really good indication of those speeds and coverages. FCC has not adopted it, obviously, that they probably never will, but we have had conversation with them to see if they would start using some granular type apps like this to provide that mapping service. Also, I'm glad that you sent the broadband report. I read through most of it until it got to all the different vendor comments. The only thing I'm a little concerned with is there's a section in there that says overhaul of right-of-way. For most county commissioners, that becomes an issue, and I'm not sure what overhaul meant, but we feel that the right-of-way that we're responsible for, we should have local control, and we should not be giving that away. So I'm just making a comment here. So if there's a plan to overhaul so that local authorities don't have control of that anymore, I think that could be a problem. So, and maybe we can talk about that offline, but I just didn't know what overhaul meant.
Well, think back to 2018 and what happened with the co-ops and the overhaul. Basically, taking a look at is making sure that we have a level playing field out there, and where folks are basically doing what they're supposed to do, so we don't have to go in and do fixes like we did in 2018.
Right.
So basically, trying to make sure that there is some sort of cohesion across the state in terms of what folks are going to be doing, how they're going to do it without trampling people's property rights in the bargain. So it's sort of both a sword and a shield, but it's something to take a look at. And we opened the books on that in 18. We solved part of the problem. We didn't solve by any means all of it. And I'm not sure there is a solution for all of it, but it's something that folks have expressed an interest in, that while we're at it, we want to make sure that folks who are trying to get out there and deploy broadband are able to do that in an orderly fashion without the utter chaos that we ran into with that situation, which ended up in a $129 million jury verdict, if memory serves. That was really ugly and got in the way of a lot of folks getting into broadband, just be honest. I think a lot of folks got enough, their fingers burned, hands burned. One in particular had third-degree burns all over its body. And that was a chilling effect on the entire industry, I think, as far as co-ops went. What, 8 or 9 out of the co-ops are in that space, and most are not. And I think that was a residual effect of what happened with that lawsuit. Nobody wants to be sued, so we'd like to take a look at so that nobody gets sued.
Okay, and then the
That
last
answers-
thing yep, thank you. The last thing I have, we had a Missouri Association of Counties board meeting, and I have shared the committee information. So there's committees set up now, and I chair the technology committee. So we have adopted a statement of basic philosophy, policies, and practices. So our committee approved that, and the Missouri Association of Counties has now adopted that as part of the blueprint for the technology section and committee. And part of that is also a cybersecurity priorities and best practices that goes along with the broadband piece. Because with broadband, if we don't have cybersecurity, and I've shared this before too, and it's actually from the National Association of Counties, the cybersecurity priorities and best practices. Of course, I think there's 10. Of course, the first one's multi-factor authentication, and then it goes down the list, end user education, those types of things. So I think we need to, I know this is broadband committee, but we also need to be aware of the cybersecurity and the impacts that has, not on just the infrastructure, but also cybersecurity coverages. I just filled out our cybersecurity insurance application. I think last year or the year before it was 2 questions. Now it's 3 pages. So we need to be careful not to check the boxes without knowing exactly what they're asking, because you check the wrong box, something happens and they say, oh, you checked the box saying you did this, but you really don't. So we're not covering anything. So just as a FYI, just be careful if you're trying to renew your policies, because that's an issue. And there's going to be some people talking about that at the commissioners training coming up in a couple of weeks. So that's all I had, unless anybody has any questions for me. Thank you, Representative Riggs.
And I just want to add, I was able to talk with the association president this past week, and I'm very encouraged by the way basically the association has pivoted on this particular issue, and the resources are being made available. The information is being made available to commissioners to go out and be able to do things like Rawls County's been able to do, Shelby County, Marion County. A lot of early adopters out there started with CARES and then have gone into ARPA. I had a member off the committee told me this past week that has a commission in the far southwest part of the state's basically going to use all their ARPA funds on broadband. Their service is that bad. And for those of you who follow the maps around, the double-digit loss of population also correlates to people who have the worst internet. And the folks who've actually gained population have the best internet, and that would be in our neck of the woods. That would be Rawls. So just want to thank you for that, and for the emphasis, and for your service, basically letting folks know what's out there in terms of technology and how to get at that. Also want to talk, Cindy, are you still there?
Representative Riggs, can I ask make a point real quick into Tracy's, the Test It mapping service app. Again, I just want to draw back again the attention that's excellent, and it's a move in the right direction, but we still keep missing the sections where there are no internet. Doesn't help to have a tested map, program to create a map if they don't have internet. And so like that little 5-mile area in Marion County or Hannibal and in several parts of my county and school district boundaries, there just isn't any. So even the Northeast Planning Commission surveys and stuff, if they don't have internet at home, we're not getting that feedback yet. The, Federal Trade Commission or whatever, their maps are saying that areas are served, and we know they're not. And then to go along with what Representative Riggs just said about the declining populations, that we see that in the school districts and our enrollments. And again, it really all relates back to the fact that our Northeast counties do suffer with internet and then also housing, affordable housing opportunities.
And to that point, DED is actually doing the gap analysis, so there is help on the way. We've got some resources we're putting into the mapping, the 911 piece, basically, for the base layer. So there are some developments in that direction that are long overdue, but they're coming. I actually got to talk to an FCC commissioner in September in Arkansas. They admit it. Their maps are just awful. So yeah, we hope to have it done by the end of this calendar year. I said, so when is it actually going to happen? Well, probably mid-2022. Maybe. They don't know, but that's another problem. We just have that disconnect between the feds and us, and we can do a better job at the state level, and we're going to have to.
I would like to follow up with John on that. So that tested app, it will record your location, and if there's no connection, it will wait until it gets connected to send that information as no connection in that specific point. So it does identify that as no connectivity.
So I could start going around and doing it in different locations and submitting those results, or is it like one time per IP address, or how does that? Because I'll do that if I have to. I'll drive around our district and continue doing that until they get a full picture.
Yeah, just move about 10 feet, and it'll create a new point on the map.
Okay, I will look into that. Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate it.
And then one other thing, I've mentioned this before. Don't forget about Starlink. It works. We have a pilot program in Audrain County. Last time I tested was 170 down and 70 up. It really works, and that's an option for places that, we can't spend $20,000 to get to one house on the end of the road. It is a true broadband, high-speed connection. That's an option for people who we just, return on investment for fiber is just not there yet. So that's all I have. Thanks.
See, repeat that, what you just said, who you were who'd you suggest there?
Oh, Starlink.
Starlink. Okay. I just didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
It's not a satellite. It's sort of a satellite system, but it's
I know what it is. I just
constellation. Yeah.
42,000 by the time it's all said and done. It's one a day for the next 10 years. So 10 years. Cindy, you still on there?
I was reading this.
That's all right. Cindy, is Cindy still on there? Cindy Holtz?
Let's see her. I think she's-
Okay.
David.
David still there?
Hey.
Do you have a question for Tracy? I thought I heard you say.
Yes, we've got a church that is fixing to do a blanket the community campaign. Hi, we're from this church. What can we do for you? That might be something that would be easily done while they're standing at the front door of whoever they're going to meet and say, hey, can we, would you mind if we checked your broadband speed and gather the data and feed it back that way? And if they're going to be blanketing the whole community anyway, that might be a way to get some pretty decent data.
And who was doing that, David? You're muted.
Oops, wrong button. Mission Hill Baptist in Palmyra. Yeah, they're probably looking at doing that in March or April.
Okay.
Sherry Shinnerwork still there?
Yep, she's there.
Sherry, what do you know?
She's muted still, so.
Sherry still muted? Somebody unmute Sherry.
She might have stepped away.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. I've had an item on their bullet point, basically town halls, other areas of the state, networking. We're actually going to have Cindy Holtz help us out within the General Assembly, basically to do a presentation here within the next 2 weeks, describing what the RPCs do, why they're there, how they can help, basically as a resource. I refer to them as University Extension with money. They know everybody in the state. They can talk to anybody in 15 minutes. They will get you a definitive answer on anything, but they also know how to write the grants, where the grants are, and how to access that money. So it's been a real blessing for us as the interim committee. The first people who stepped up and said, you need meeting space, let us know when and where. And most of our town halls were at RPC facilities or facilities that they arranged for us to go to. So that was basically the first, round in that action. They're out there to help. They just need folks to contact them and let them know. So that's part of the educational process. We're going to do that within the General Assembly to let people know they're out there, and they're basically all over the state. Every county has some connection to an RPC. One that kind of fascinates was Mid-America and what they were doing in terms of adoptability. The adoption piece is something we not talk about statewide until this past year. They're out there doing it real time, and lots of different programs to help with that. So if we find out other town halls coming up, we'll let you know. Federal funds infrastructure questions, Brian's basically, we're in a holding pattern as far as what the next guidance is going to be. Any other infrastructure questions or anything, and if Sherry's back yet or not, talk to DED folks or other agencies out there. Any questions, comments? I know we've got some more other rounds coming up from the feds. Of course, we've got the state fund coming up. And I want to encourage everybody, make sure that you talk to your reps, those of you from other places. Dave, in Jefferson City, we've got Lincoln University that's going to get some funding basically as a historically Black college university to help out with that particular area. There are lots of deserts in Jefferson City, including some in the capital itself. We get bad reception there. So as these basic funds start dispersing and going out across the state, and you have questions, the comments, what have you, concerns, be sure and let your elected representatives know what those are so you can deal with them in real time. Just down the road, we've got about a dozen different broadband bills at various stages of introduction being heard. The plan is to have everybody in the House chamber hear something related to broadband before we put that together in an omnibus bill. We send it over to the Senate. We want to be able to have basically unit cohesion within the House to do whatever it takes to inform, instruct whatever folks on the other side of the building. These are the needs. This is what's going on in our district. And part of that I mentioned earlier was the research arm going down to the school district level. Everyone has schools in their district, lots of them. And when we start hearing back from parents about the absence of online resources, you give them a tablet, it's worthless if you can't get a cell phone signal to activate it. We have those deserts everywhere in the state, from urban core to out, in North Shelby. So we're working on that. I'll keep everybody posted on that. My e-newsletter goes out every week during the session. You can go to the homepage, sign up for that. Representative Bosley has one, Representative Griffith. We all basically send those out. So if you're looking for additional resources, information, please let us know. We're all over this. And it's something that we're committed to getting this done in 2022. This is the year. Were there any other questions, any other comments, concerns, anybody who hadn't spoken yet and wanted to jump in, want to be sensitive about everybody's time?
Lou, I just wanted to say thank you, Representative Riggs, for, leading the charge on this. You have been a tremendous support, and I think everybody on this call knows that, and we really appreciate you and your efforts in doing everything you can to bring this coalition together.
Well, bless you, and thank you for saying that, but at the same time, I'm part of the process that includes people like you who are identifying the problem spots, urban core. This is not just a rural problem. This is an everybody problem. And the fact of the matter is, the more resources we put at this, the more times we have like this where people get together and share best practices or concerns, the better off we're going to be as a state. And again, this is the year to do this. So if there's nothing further, I want to say again, thank you for being here. We'll get the next meeting notice out. It'll be on a Friday, probably fourth weekish of February, if we have a fourth Friday in February. What does that look like? Pretty close. If it's not, that'll be right around the 1st of
It'll be the
March.
25th, right?
Yeah, it's not leap year this year. So we will look forward to hearing from everybody. In the meantime, if you have questions, comments, concerns, let us know. And until next time, we will see you later. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hey, Representative Riggs, do you have any update on where things are standing as far as the appropriations of ESSER 3 funding? That's a little bit of a side topic, but pretty big impact to schools and the state overall.
We're working on some supplemental funding. I know that's something in budget. We are looking very hard to make sure that that does not slip from our grasp. So there is a sense of urgency behind that. We're in the budget books. We're doing DESI this week. So yes, we're aware it's a problem. We want to make sure that those funds get out as soon as they can.
So you believe that you guys will pass that appropriation prior to the March 24th deadline?
Yes, I don't see any way that we can not do that.
Well, I agree, but starting to get a little worried.
It needs to be done. We had the lovely redistricting to deal with first, and now that's out of our chamber. It's over on the other side of the building. They're going to do whatever it is they're going to do to it. But yeah, we're aware of it. Nobody wants to see that happen. So yeah, prediction is yes.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anything else? Thank you very much.